What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So you're not going to believe what Treasury Secretary Yellen said yesterday. We're going to go ahead and play a clip, and we're going to listen to her talk about inflation. And I have to be honest with you, this does not look good. This is not good news, okay? But this is something that we all need to pay attention to, because this is something that we are going to be looking at for the foreseeable future, okay? Inflation. And we'll have the numbers this week as far as the CPI numbers. So we'll be able to see where inflation is, or where inflation was, I should say, in May. And it's very important that we continue to follow this story, because this is affecting every American. And you see, I mean, all I have to do is look in the comments, and I see plenty of people letting me know that they're struggling. And I totally understand that. And we're in a situation where there are a lot of things that need to happen. And I know people are out there saying we need stimulus checks, but the federal government, they're not even looking at that. They're not even entertaining that right now. And the main reason is because of inflation. Okay, so you have some politicians that just think, you know what, if we're already inflated and we stimulate the economy even more, then we be even more inflated. So that is what we're seeing, and that's what we're hearing from politicians, and that's why they're kind of backing away from stimulus. Now, that doesn't mean the states are backing away. We know the states are offering up rebates and things like that. So the states are stepping up now and trying to provide a stimulus for their residents. And the main reason why is because they've had this money all along. They could have been offering this up a long time ago, but they've been holding on to this money. And now they realize, okay, we're going to have to do something with this money, because if we don't, by 2024, the money goes back to the federal government. And so that's why they're kind of saying, okay, well, let's go ahead. This is a good time to offer up a gas rebate, or offer up something, a child tax credit rebate, or something. So that's why we're seeing states step up. So the good news is states are still interested in stimulus. But right now, the federal government, they're more focused on raising interest rates and trying to cool off the economy. Because if we can't cool the economy off, then inflation is going to continue to rise. Okay, so we're going to take a look and a listen to Treasury Secretary Yellen. First off, on this channel, we talk about money and the financial struggles that Americans are facing today. If that sounds like something interesting to you, please subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell notification. That way you get notified anytime we put out a video. And like always, if you see my name and a picture of me in the comment section, make sure you see a check mark next to my name. That check mark signifies that it's me. If you do not see that check mark, it's not me. It's someone trying to impersonate me. Okay, so before we get started with the video, I just want to say thank you. We had a large influx of subscribers in the last couple of weeks, and I really appreciate that. It might be because I've changed kind of my intro, so I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the support. So if you are out there, you've been watching me for a while, you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It does help with the YouTube algorithm, and that helps me get the message out. Okay, and that's the whole game here. I'd like to get the message out to as many people as possible. And YouTube, for whatever reason, when they see more subscribers and they see more likes on the video, they tend to promote it out to other people. That's basically the way it works. So, okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to play this clip, and we'll talk a little bit about it. Now, this is from Reuters, and Reuters, they're narrating this, but there's some key points on here that I wanted to point out as we watch this, because there's some interesting stuff. So let's go ahead and play it. Here we go.
Senator, we're seeing high inflation in almost all developed countries around the world.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was in the hot seat Tuesday. In opening remarks to the Senate Finance Committee, Yellen said the U.S. faces what she called
unacceptable levels of inflation,
but said much of it.
Okay, unacceptable levels of inflation. Okay, and that should scare you. This is the Treasury Secretary saying this. I'm telling you, when it comes down to it, we really need to pay attention and listen to what they're saying, because if they're saying this, you have to understand the Treasury Secretary, she doesn't want to bring this alarm to everyone, right? So the fact that she's saying this, we really need to pay attention, because this is not something that's normal. From a political perspective, you don't want to say things are worse than what they are, or you don't want to, even if things are bad, you kind of want to sugarcoat it, right? But she's not sugarcoating anything. She's letting us know, look, I didn't expect this, and this is not where we want to be right now.
was caused by residual snarls in the global supply chain and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Yellen has come under fire from Republicans after admitting she was wrong last year in forecasting that inflation would be transitory and quickly subside. Here's Republican John Thune of...
Okay, before we even get started with that, with what Senator Thune says, or the question that he asked, I just wanted to talk about this, and I talked about this in a video last week. She admitted that she was wrong when it came to inflation. She said it would be transitory, it would be temporary, and it would go away. But that's not the case. Now, I mean, and that is a big problem, right? You're saying something's going to be transitory, so people are expecting that it's only going to be a short period of time, and then now we're looking at it a year later, and we're still in this situation. And for the foreseeable future, we're going to be seeing inflation. So the one thing that I will give her credit for is she at least admitted, look, I was wrong. Okay, she's not in a situation where she's still playing that game where she's still saying, no, I think it's still going to be transitory. It's just going to take a little bit more time. She's actually saying, you know what, that was a wrong assessment. And what they're saying, what the White House is trying to play off, well, we didn't anticipate certain things. We didn't anticipate the war. We didn't anticipate things like that. And so the fact that happened, now we're deep into it. It was going to be transitory, but now it's not because of that. But I would at least, I'll at least commend her for owning up and saying, you know what, I made a mistake. I was wrong. Okay. And it's pretty interesting that Senator Thune is one of the politicians that has an issue with someone being wrong, because and I don't like to get too political, but we know how politicians are, right? And we know that you have certain politicians that will not admit that they're wrong ever. And that's a problem. And then you have Senator Thune supporting some of those politicians. Okay, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So let's go ahead and go back. Here we go.
South Dakota.
But do you still view inflation, which remains near a 40-year high, as transitory, or do you expect an extended period of raised inflation?
Well, when I said that inflation would be transitory, what I was not anticipating was a scenario in which we would end up contending with multiple variants of COVID that would be scrambling our economy and global supply chains, and I was not envisioning impacts on food and energy prices we've seen from Russia's invasion. So I do expect inflation to remain high, although I very much hope that it will be coming down now.
Republicans have...
Okay, so she's saying there she expects it to remain high, and that's, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. And she even went as far later on, not in this clip. I think there was another clip that I was watching, but she was pretty much saying that the President Biden, they're trying to set the budget for 2023, and they have an estimate. I think it was like 4.7, the inflation at 4.7. She's even saying, you know what, they need to raise that. Okay, they need to raise that estimate when it comes to the budget and inflation, because she thinks it's going to be higher than 4.7. So they're saying by the end of the year it should be around 4.7, but she thinks it needs to be higher. Okay, so that just gives you an indicator right there that what they were anticipating, where they thought that they would be, they're not going to be there.
Have blamed the Biden administration's policies, particularly the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan passed in 2021, for fueling the fastest inflation in almost 40 years.
And do you think that it is at all attributable to the overheated economy that was accelerated by last year's $1.9 trillion partisan spending bill?
Look, when President Biden took office, the United States faced a really horrendous problem in that it was projected that unemployment would stay extremely high for many years.
Yellen said the ARP fueled a robust recovery and argued that the U.S. economy was now moving from recovery to stable growth and was in a good position to tamp down rising prices. She also urged lawmakers to act on the White House's proposals for clean energy and prescription drugs to bring down costs for consumers.
Okay, so that was Treasury Secretary Yellen. Now, you saw at the very end there, they're still talking about the 1.9 trillion. And it's interesting that Senator Thune, now Senator Thune happens to be a Republican, he's talking about the $1.9 trillion package, but he's not talking about the package that was in December right before that. And it wasn't quite 1.9 trillion, but I'm just telling you, we had package after package, stimulus packages after stimulus packages that we're going through. And what gets me when it comes to politicians talking about these stimulus packages, they focus on one thing. They're not focusing on all the money. They're focusing on the stimulus checks. Stimulus checks caused this. Okay. So that's unfortunate that politicians are just focused on that $450 billion. They're not focusing on the rest, all the other money that was going out to big corporations, and the money that was, the PPP funding and all this different funding that was going out. They're not focused on that. They're focused on the stimulus checks. Those stimulus checks that's what got us to this point where inflation is at all-time highs. They're not going. They wouldn't dare attack the money that was going to corporations and the money that was going to businesses. Why? Because those businesses are funding their campaigns. Okay, so I just thought that was interesting. It's always, it's always when I start looking at situations like this, it's always interesting to see how these politicians react, because they react. When you look at things, you're thinking, okay, well, 400 billion went to, or 450 billion went to stimulus checks, but then another trillion went to businesses. But we're just going to disregard the trillion that went to businesses, and we're going to focus on this 450 billion. And that's the problem. It wasn't the other money. And understand this too. A lot of this money went to businesses. And what did businesses do with the money? They spent it, and they were spending that money to buy different things, which was inflating the economy as well. So, I mean, all this had to happen because we didn't want our economy to tank. That's the bottom line. So we had to prop up our economy with the stimulus, and that's why they were doing that. Now, the argument is, did we stimulate our economy too much, right? We're looking at inflation now, so maybe we did stimulate it too much, but it was packages. It was 3 large stimulus packages that went through that helped us get to this point. 1 during President Biden's administration, and then 2 during the Trump administration. Okay, so I think it was a total of 3 trillion, or even more. It was probably around 5 trillion, to be honest with you. That's the spending that we put into our economy to keep it afloat. And now what we need to do is we need to come off that. And that's why they're raising interest rates. They're trying to cool the economy off and not drop into a recession, which I think the reality is we're probably going to drop into a recession. We drop into a recession. And then at that point, guess what they're going to have to do again? They're going to have to stimulate the economy again. Okay, so that means in the future, we could see something. And I won't even say that. I'm not even going to say in the future we could see something else. I'm just going to say, if we drop into a recession, something is going to need to be done to stimulate the economy. Okay, let me show you this too. I just want to kind of go over some of the issues that we're facing right now, because there are a lot of them, and it's hard to keep track of them because there's so many. So let's just go over some of them. So we know grocery prices are just on the rise. It's a huge problem. And the part of that is food shortage. Okay, so we know we have food shortages right now, so these kind of go hand in hand, right? Okay, and then we can look at gas prices. We know gas prices, that's an issue. Go to the tank. I just got gas a couple of days ago. It was $6.40 something. I live in Southern California, so it's pretty expensive here. It's expensive everywhere, but in Southern California, it's at the top. We know the national average right now for gas is $4.91. So it's just not stopping. So that's one big issue. Diesel fuel. Now I put this separate, okay, because diesel fuel, that's a whole other animal, and we're looking at truckers right now that are really struggling to fill up their tanks. Okay, they're $1,000 to fill up a tank. It's crazy. So they're in a situation where we have some truckers that are saying, you know what, I'm going to sit out. I'm not going to work because it doesn't benefit me to bring this load to a department store because I'm paying so much in gas. So that is an issue. That is a huge problem. And that means that the price of goods will go up because of that, okay? For two reasons. One, if the trucker has to pay more, and even if it's, even if it's not an owner operator, even if it's a big business, a corporation that has the trucking company, they still have to pay more for gas. And so they need to charge these department stores more, okay? And so if that's the situation, then that means that price of goods go up. Now, if you have, let's say, owner-operator truckers that say, I'm not gonna bring the loads anymore, I'm gonna sit out for a while. Well, then guess what? That means less products going to these department stores. So if you have less products, now we're looking at a situation where the demand is there, but the supply isn't. And so that means the cost of products and goods will go up. Okay, supply chain issues. So we know we've been talking about that, and I just kind of talked about that's another angle when it comes to supply chain. Now we know China is back open again, so maybe they'll be able to address some of the supply chain issues because let's face it, we get a lot of stuff from China. Okay, gun reform. This is just another issue that I put in here. This is something that is going to take a lot of the politicians' attention right now. So we have senators, you have the House representatives. They're trying to come up with these different bills when it comes to gun reform. So it's something that we need to discuss because it's something that is on the table right now, and it is an issue. Okay, and it's going to be something that politicians are focused on. Housing. We know housing is a big problem. The cost of renting a place is going up. Okay. In certain parts of the country, it's going up even higher. There are a lot of areas like Florida where people are now allowed to work from home or are able to work from home. And so a lot of people are saying, you know what? I don't need to live in California anymore. I'm going to go to Florida, or I'm going to go somewhere else where it's cheaper. The only problem with that is that if people are leaving California and going to Florida and going to some of these other states, guess what? That means the demand for rental properties and even houses in those areas, the demand is going up. So if the demand goes up, you only have a certain amount of apartments there and houses there. If the demand goes up and the supply doesn't go up, it's going to cost more. It's going to cost more to rent places. And that's why in Florida, we're seeing a lot of these rental properties going up in cost. Okay. The war in Ukraine, and you saw that Treasury Secretary Yellen was talking about this, the war. So that is definitely an issue. So these are some of the things that we're looking at. Now there are other things that I don't have on here that I forgot to put on here. One is COVID still. COVID is still an issue, right? So we can't think that we're still focused on COVID, okay? And we still could have something in the future that would shut us down again, or at least cause some issues in certain areas of the country. So we still need to focus on COVID because that is still there. And so as you can see, things are not looking good. Okay, and I always want to be honest with you guys and let you guys know what's out there. I did have some people in the comments in the last couple of videos saying, "Well, what's the good news? What's the good news?" Right now, there's not much good to tell. Okay, I have to be completely honest with you. The only thing that I can say that's good is that we have states that are looking to issue out rebates and issue out these different stimulus checks, but that's it. In a lot of these states, they haven't issued anything, but they're talking about things. So that's the only good news that I'm hearing right now and that I'm seeing. But when it comes down to our economy, and especially at the federal level, things just aren't looking good. And the hope is that things will get better very soon. But you saw Treasury Secretary Yellen saying that inflation, it looks like we have a long road. Okay, we're not going to get out of this anytime soon. So I want to know if you guys have any questions. So post them down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.